joined by Blitz. Blitz, these two teams, I mean, I feel like this is probably the match to watch for the day. I mean, in my mind, these two teams are some of the strongest teams. I have them ranked quite highly. I think I have both of these teams ranked top 4 in my predictions for TI. I feel like we're going to be seeing some serious bombs here.
Yeah, I think top 5 is... Okay, I like to preface that with, if Empire performs like to their max potential, top 5 is like no problem. Like even top 3 is something that I could see.
10 seconds
like they
remaining.
gave Secret a run for their money at the Mars TV LAN. They got first at D2CL. They got first at MLG. Like, this is a team that is just talented top to bottom, but that's if they play to potential, because we've seen them at TIs before where, you know, they almost always have the best win rate leading up to TI, and then something just doesn't click.
Yep. It's been a repeat story for every single previous TI, but Blitz, I have faith that this year, this TI is different, but I guess we're going to get our first taste of that in our first game between Empire and Vici Gaming. The band's coming out, Tusk, Undying, Leshrac, and the Bounty Hunter, all being banned away. I would say pretty normal stuff. This still leaves heroes like Queen of Pain and SF still in the pool. When it comes to mid laners, we also have some supports that are quite preferred right now. For example, the Earthshaker has been seeing a lot of play, and we also talked about the Dazzle in our last series we casted together. But Gyrocopter is going to be the option here for Vici Gaming, and they're actually going to go for a support that I think doesn't get as much value as many of the others we're seeing right now, but is consistently strong no matter what. And Rubik already has at least 2 really good abilities to steal from the Queen of Pain in the Blink and Sonic Wave.
It's just a FY hero as well. And the other thing too is it's a good hero for Aloha Dance. So I think it's a block pick.
10 seconds
the Gyrocopter
remaining.
I definitely think is both a block pick and just a good pick overall. If you think of Gyrocopter players, I'm always thinking of Silent. Like, I think Silent is actually the best one. Like, he always consistently farms on that hero. Like, there's not a game where he doesn't dominate with it. So I'm thinking of Silent whenever I see a Gyrocopter, and it's just been the most consistently picked carry of this tournament so far. And so,
and he has a great win rate. I think he's only dropped 1 game. I mean, maybe that's changed up as more matches have closed over the last hour. But
I think you're right.
He's had like a really impressive 10-1.
It's absurd that you can pick him first and he has that win rate.
Yes.
That's what makes him insane, because typically if you pick a hero early on, there should be some sort of hard counter to that strategy, right? Like, if you pick Storm in the first 2, there should be something that will, you know, that you have to take that is just rough against it. But with the Gyrocopter, it covers so many of your angles for you. Like, it bans you, it stops you from picking heroes like Phantom Lancer, it stops you from picking heroes that have that heavily rely on illusions or anything like that. It's just such a strong hero in the laning phase. So just 2 heroes alone, like the Gyrocopter plus 1 hero, completely zone out any offlane.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Storm Spirit. He has some very clear strength and weaknesses and some very obvious openings. Gyrocopter just seems to be strong all the way through. You know, you have very strong early game. Your laning phase is incredibly powerful due to Rocket Barrage. You make a transition with a couple of stat builds into a rather good team fighter going into the mid game, and he obviously makes for quite the strong late game carry. Normally because he's able to get 6 slotted, maybe not faster than say an Anti-Mage, but he's always able to get 6 slotted. I would say by about 45-55 minutes.
I mean, what is he bad at? The laning phase is amazing. Rocket Barrage might be the most cost-effective spell in Dota. There's nothing that you point to and say to Gyrocopter. His stats are kind of bad, but you're going to build him stat-heavy anyways. So it's pretty irrelevant. And you're going to get a BKB, so that probably also doesn't really...
You could say due to poor stats and due to him having to play quite heavily around Flat Cannon in the late game, that he can drop off as a super late game carry, but the prevalence of Divine Rapiers and Flat Cannon can still make him easily viable. He just has some slight weaknesses in that regard, and that's just pretty much it.
Yeah, talking about heroes with very little counters as well, Queen of Pain is just one of those heroes that is incredibly powerful overall. She does so much for you. She can pretty much lane as anything. I think we even saw her as a support today in our Complexity versus C-Deck game. Most commonly, a mid can be done as a carry, offlaner. You name it, Queen of Pain is going to be useful. But Vici Gaming respond with the Crystal Maiden. We actually saw this counter in the first Secret versus Fnatic game, if I remember correctly, where Puppey played the CM in response to the early pickup from Fnatic, if you remember, where they picked Wind Ranger and the Queen of Pain.
Right.
Radiant team pick.
But
so a Wisp now being picked up for Team Empire. What kind of Wisp hero are we looking for here? Do they go for a Tiny Wisp combination, which can be good versus Gyrocopter? I mean, the Tiny and his physical damage is good versus the Gyrocopter in some regards, but he also gets kited around by cooldown, and the Wisp is obviously not going to have a real good time sticking close to a Tiny if he's trying to battle it out with a Gyro.
I think it's 100% a Tiny.
100%?
Resolution plus...
5 seconds remaining.
I think it's Aloha. Their combination is just too strong. Like, they run it so well.
Time.
I think it was actually D2CL where they ran over Vici with it in like 15 minutes, if I remember correctly. Resolution was like 12-1 or something with it. And we actually saw this specific matchup too. It was, if they picked a Tiny here, it was a Tiny Wisp against a Dragonite in Cole versus C-Deck. And we all saw how that went. Or if you didn't, spoiler alert,
it doesn't go well for the
Dragonite doesn't win.
Yeah, and it's kind of like theoretically it goes better for the Dragonite than what we saw, right? Like Dragonite's supposed to be one of the few maids who can actually survive through the combination. He has spamming abilities, and that spamming ability, like Dragonite was still picked up against Tiny Wisp as a dual lane mid, farther back. But he even has a buff now where his Breathe Fire reduces damage, which is actually very strong versus Tiny, who has a very high base damage. So you actually manage to take away like a larger amount of damage away from this carry than you would many others. It's just the problem is the Tiny Wisp is still too strong as a combination that even a hero like Dragonite, even if you feel like you're better than most, you still can easily go down to this lane.
It's not. It's in my all honesty, I just think it's a lane that isn't really winnable for the Dragonite.
Right.
Like you can spam Breathe Fire, like you said, but even then, it's just not very powerful. Like it's one of those measures that's temporary. Because as soon as the Tiny IO gets you in any sort of combination, like you get stunned and then you get tossed back and then you get slowed by the wire and then you just get blown up every single time. And so it's okay, I guess, but the natural tankiness of the hero doesn't translate well because it's not the right clicks that kill you from the Tiny IO, right? It's It's the fact combination. That, it's the spirits plus the nuke combination. So the Dragon's Blood actually doesn't even seem to make a difference.
Now, what about these last couple of bans? Because these are two different offlaners that we've actually seen a lot more here as we get into this first group stage day of TI. We haven't actually seen a whole lot of Tide Hunter at all in the current patch. We've seen it here and there, but we have heard teams talk about it as a potentially very strong offlaner for this event. Why do you think that is?
I think it just, if you're trying to run 5-man lineups, Tidehunter is the best against it.
Yeah.
And man, I really wish I was on the draft analysis panel. I like knew Empire's like entire lineup. It's like it's because Yoki always plays. He's their Earthshaker player.
Yeah, like Team Empire is one of the few teams who like consistently run offlane Earthshaker, like more so than any other team.
What are the two offlane heroes that you've seen Yoki play, like in the last like 10 games? It's like Earthshaker and Sand King.
Yeah,
that's actually. He used to play Axe a lot when the hero was really popular, but
now it's
really
fallen. So.
Yeah, but remember, that's like those are the two. That's his style. He likes to play the melee initiator with a big ultimate and the setup stuns.
That being said, though, I think Vici Gaming set it up very well where they banned away the Sand King and left the Earthshaker knowing that Team Empire was going to pick it up. And Clockwork, and they grabbed the Clockwork because that's, kind of what they're forced to do is grab the Clockwork before the Earthshaker. But he serves as a very strong counter to the Earthshaker for most of the game. Like, he's just, if he ever gets the Earthshaker inside of his cogs with Battery Assault, you can't actually do anything as an Earthshaker.
Oh, most definitely. Like, if I'm an Earthshaker offlane, and I see a Clockwork on the other team, it's just annoying to play in general. And the other thing that we should consider is that Rubik, if you give up a Rubik Fissure, especially with the type of lineup that Empire have, it's going to be so hard for them to play against. Because one of the harder counters to the Queen of Pain, especially for setups, is having the Fissure, right? You can Fissure, then the Rubik can walk in, lift, and then the Crystal Maiden can Frostbite. And it's pretty much a free kill. So I kind of want to see Silent not build typically, which is the whole... what is it, like a lot of people just go Orchid off the bat? I actually think going something like Ags, BKB, or Yule Scepter, like something defensive first, is the better play here.
Of course, we want to take the time to welcome everybody from the stream that is just now joining our commentary, rather. You guys are ready for what should be One of the better games of the group stages as Empire and Vici Gaming both rated quite heavily. We're going to see Empire already setting up on this top batting rune. Vici Gaming will take the bottom one. So it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing any first blood action. Ice. Whoa, he's just playing this very aggressively. Throws down an early cogs and managed to get two bounces.
You got to be careful. I actually thought he was going to get pushed one more time onto the... that would have been miserable.
Pushed up onto the cliff.
Yeah, he has no gold. That would have just ruined his game.
That was a very clever move by Ice, especially the way that he set that one up. Like, even if he doesn't get the bounce back, just getting one or maybe even two pushes like that is kind of worth use of the mana. Now, our middle lane is going to be Super facing up against his Resolution, Aloha Dance, Tiny Whisk combination. Of course, he's not going to be alone. Fenrir is going to be spending a lot of time bouncing in between jungle and moving into lane, as I'm sure Super is going to need the help.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, there's no reason for Fenrir to just abandon the Dragon Knight, because he's going to struggle in general. Like, look at this already. This is what we were talking about when we first saw the draft, is that the Dragon Knight does okay, but it's really deceptive. Like, it's not actually that great of a matchup, and so I'm pretty interested to see that.
A lot of bottle crowing is what Super has to do, because he has to stay at pretty much max HP, and even then he can't really get too close to the Tiny Whisk combination. He's going to have to just spam out a lot of Breathe Fires. Now, there is going to be some recovery gold to be had. As Fenrir is farming up the creeps, he's also stacking them. So he's killing the bigger creeps, but the smaller creeps are stacking up. I'm sure that'll be something Super is able to farm a little bit later with his Breathe Fire. Meanwhile, in top lane, Ice is dealing with a very difficult lane. 2 different ranged heroes and 2 different slows on top of that, as Always Wanna Fly has gone for the more offensive build level 1, as why would he need Shallow Grave or Shadow Wave in this matchup anyway?
Yeah, for sure. And for me, personally, Empire is just a team of polar opposites when compared to Vici Gaming. And it just feels like Empire have their number. Like, I think the last few times I've cast them, it's always been Empire that wins this matchup. And I think it just comes down to the playstyles. Like, Resolution is a completely different mid than Super, right? Like, Resolution likes to play incredibly aggro heroes that soak up a lot of farm. Ice likes to play like the playmaking mids and stuff like that, but this might actually be first blood here.
Yeah, Aloha Dance, he actually snagged that haste rune. They're going to go for Ice, who trapped himself in the cogs, is trying to get away now, but the haste rune plus the extra movement speed on the tethered Tiny is allowing them to keep in pace. Ice goes for the deny. Oh, Aloha Dance actually snacks the first blood there.
He's giving him mana.
Right click, and now Fenrir has enough mana. He's actually going to turn around, get off another Crystal Nova, but he will die as well. Aloha Dance secures a double kill. The tower hit will actually finish him off in the end, but it's still a big win for Team Empire as they battle it out for that top rune.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about. It's the playstyle of Empire. I don't think that Vici Gaming is used to teams getting this active on them and just playing so aggressively on them from the get-go. And it's kind of weird because the heroes would dictate otherwise, right? Like, the mid lane is very aggressive, but the types of supports that Empire typically pick are defensive ones, right? Like, they really favor heroes like the Shadow Demon, the Dazzle, and so those aren't heroes that you typically see initiate or anything like that. And in this game, you see that too, but it is Empire that pick up the first kill. Whereas their offlaner, Yoki, almost always plays the Earthshaker, the Sand King role, and on the flip side of Vici Gaming, you've got Ice that almost always plays some sort of playmaker role. Like, he doesn't just like to play a passive offlaner.
Now, both of these offlaners are going to be having a pretty difficult time. As you already mentioned, Ice is dealing with Queen of Pain plus even the Dazzle. Pretty obnoxious there. The Earthshaker, very dangerous matchup for him as well with the Gyrocopter. Being able to dish out so much damage with that Rock Barrage, he's got to play pretty safe and passive in his lane. You could already see he's heading back to base. He figures, you know what, I'm already low on HP. I have no mana left. And that's really how he's going to get probably half to, if not maybe 3/4 of his CS is through some Fissure spam. So he's going to head on back to base and will return with a TP perhaps. Still waiting on some more action in this middle lane. Super, though, is being very careful to keep his HP bar up. Every single time he gets a toss on him, he makes sure to use another bottle charge to keep high HP. And whenever they go for a rune, he's able to move forward and get a couple of right clicks, but as soon as they return, he has to sit back once again.
Yeah, something interesting is Aloha Dance isn't playing the typical Wisp role on the dire side, whereas I don't actually think they cut down the trees, so they can't go for the repeated neutral stacks like most combinations opt to, and I think this is just because they want to try to apply as much pressure mid as they can, but it's not even like they're dominating in CS, and they haven't actually been able to pick up a kill on Super, so I would kind of like to see him revert to going back to the stack and focusing on that, just to give Resolution that huge infusion of gold.
Do you think there's any real danger that if Aloha Dance actually leads, they're going to go for Super now? Attempted toss back there, but it actually misses. Resolution caught underneath the tower will take a lot of this damage, but there is, of course, that constant tether and damage reduction, but the toss back, now the tether fades, and there's no more heal. With the rotation out from FY, they actually pick up the kill on Team Empire. Huge loss there for the Tiny Wisp combo.
That was actually so big of a rotation. Like, there's no way that they could have anticipated that. And it was just good play overall. And Ice is going to get isolated out, but he's just going to TP and be fine. But that was just really good support rotation. Because typically the way that you approach it against a Tiny IO is that you don't want to go on the Tiny, right? But they just did it in such a way that there was no response possible. And Resolution forced down to this bottom lane, but they don't even get the kill on him. And so this is just wasted time.
Yeah, kind of weird rotation. They must have thought they were going to be able to get a combo on Gyrocopter, maybe even toss him back underneath the tower, but it just was not going to work out for them. So he makes his way back to the middle lane, where Super is now sitting at a much more comfortable 17-3 on CS, while Resolution sitting slightly above him, 22-7. Comparing the Queen of Pain and the Gyrocopter, Gyrocopter's slightly ahead, but the Queen of Pain has many, many more denies, as the Gyrocopter, I think, has spent some of his time even pushing the wave into the tower. Now the top lane, Ice really trying to control the runes as much as possible, but Aloha Dance is still able to snag a big one, Regeneration for the Wisp.
You have to still contest runes and stuff like that. Like, you have to absolutely continue to apply pressure so that both supports have to rotate in or they just feel scared. And Resolution follows him every single time to do that. And so I think it's just a good plan by him, because there's not a whole lot he can do in this top lane, Ice. Once he's against a Queen of Pain that has the levels on him. And the Queen of Pain's also going to pick up a bottle now, and so the lane's going to get even more difficult for him. Because he doesn't have one of his own. In this mid lane, Super actually with the stun and both supports rotating forward.
Oh no, the tether's going to be broken. Oh no, it actually still keeps alive, and that will actually keep Resolution alive potentially. No, the burst damage is still too much. Aloha Dance couldn't stop that one. Tried to tether and bottle as much as possible, but it does not work out. And another kill on the Tiny. At this rate, Super is now going to completely take over this lane by himself.
Yeah, this is so significant because Vici Gaming are just waiting for Resolution and the Tiny, or the Aloha Dance, to just get antsy, and they're forcing engagements way past where they can. And so you're seeing them just get a little bit too jumpy. Like, they should be relaxing, just focusing on farming.
A three-man smoke up, how TP to the tier 2 tower. If they get a third kill on Resolution, Empire are going to be falling so far behind. Oh, they're actually sneaking around. They're going to look for the stacks. But now they're going to see there is no stacks. There's no recovery mechanism whatsoever for the Tiny Wisp. And so now looks like they head up to top lane instead.
They just missed the stack. It was actually over there.
Oh, dear. Well, they will probably catch Always Wanna Fly. Or maybe not, FY.
They want
Silent. The Cogs push back there on Silent. They are able to control. The Frostbite is there, and Silent is taken out. Always Wanna Fly. He's going to run himself away ahead of How. Another rocket barrage. Always Wanna Fly drops low, and the burst damage of the rocket was enough to finish off the Dazzle before a Shallow Grave could come out.
Yeah, and right now, Vici Gaming are just playing so well with each other. Like, they're just creating opportunities constantly. There was a time period, I feel, where Vici were actually struggling to make things happen around the map. It felt like their movements were a little too forced, but going for that 6-minute rotation into the jungle just to find stacks, and then they come away with the kill on the safe laner and the 5-position support is absolutely key. And the fact is that the Dragon Knight itself hasn't even been slowed down that much.
Wow, the first relocate comes in, and How does get picked off. Ice quick to pop the Cogs and will be able to TP away. Looks like Resolution still wanted to find more. Superman's up. He goes for Always Wanna Fly, trying to target him now, knowing that the relocate back was going to be coming in, and that means no more support from the Tiny. Always Wanna Fly gonna tick out here potentially. Nope. He is good. No. Finally, the poison got to him. They tried to heal him up, but the bottle was not enough HP. So the tier 1 tower, the top lane, will now fall, and Empire very rapidly falling behind in net worth and experience.
It's actually insane how good Vici Gaming are rotating right now. Like, their rotations aren't obvious at all, but they're still making them. That smoke gank into the jungle to pick off the safe laner, the fact that both supports are rotating like they are, and even this bottom gank.
Yeah, he's caught out entirely. Yoki, he's going to turn around, throws out the Fissure, but not even that lands. Very sneaky setup from How, throwing out the call down first.
Yeah, now they're finally starting to do some stacks, but they do have one decently sized stack to go to, but it's not even like Resolution is very farmed in comparison to the Dragon Knight. The Dragon Knight has 3 kills and a tower, despite being dual laned against one of the more fearsome dual lane combos, and Empire are definitely not satisfied to see how this early game has gone for them.
I would say they're quite lucky that they did not get a single golem in this medium camp stack. Every single one. Centaurs and the like. So Tiny's going to be happy with that, at least that small bit of luck, but it's still Vici Gaming.
Oh, they got to be careful about going for this rune.
Yeah, Super's here. Hookshot already being laid down. They're going to try and pop Aloha Dance immediately. Cogs push back, but Aloha Dance still gets enough time to pop the wand. And there comes the Queen of Pain, blowing up the clockwork. And now with the extra damage, they'll kick out the Dragonite as well. 2-for-1 trade-off with the Wisp going down. Well worth it for Team Empire.
Yeah, I actually thought that was going to go poorly for Empire, but every single person rotates for that rune. They spot the danger that's imminent and Silent, wasting no time to blow that ultimate. Completely worth it because, one, you slow down the Dragon Knight pretty significantly because a lot of his gold was just built off the kills, right? And for him to die right there, he only has 30 CS at 10 minutes, so he was doing okay, but Empire getting that killing spree on the resolution is pretty significant because now he's got drums completed and now he's got some stats and mobility. And so despite him starting 0-2, now he's 2-2 and you can finally see him start to catch up.
So they go back to farm up the jungle. And this also means, well, I was going to say that middle lane is open for someone else to take, but Empire going to continue to be aggressive. They go on to Hallow to be located as well. Double Fisher, stun, and the Echo Slam on top. They're going to lock down FY and try and finish off as well. But Super comes in, nice shallow grave in order to save Aloha Dance. And FY does die in the end, and it seems like Empire will be able to get away scot-free. Super still looking to be able to chase down somebody. Resolution, yeah, he wants to fight this one. He's got a combination in second. Long range stun gets laid out. Now as Fisher comes out on top of the combination for the Tiny. Super almost died. The hook shot in. Super finally going to take out from Silent. Silent now needs to make a blink away. He will have that up now. So Tiny dies, but they get Super in the end. Empire's still very low, but between the heals of the Wisp as well as the Dazzle, they'll get back up to a decent amount of HP, but no more opportunities to continue and fight. Team Empire still happy with the way those battles are going.
Oh, for sure. The gold change, I mean, they got 1,000 off of that. It was well worth it. They managed to pick off How at the same time. It's just good rotations, good rotational play by Empire, and Vici had the lead early on, but they have to respect that combination. The relocate coming in, they didn't even care that they landed in the middle of the corner. Like, they're still willing to just blow up How and then take the advantage from there on out.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if the stuns are already there, like the Fisher, the slow doesn't mean much to the Tiny Wisp, and the damage, honestly, doesn't mean much either when the Wisp is able to just instantly heal you up and kind of refresh some of that mana as well. So the Tiny has definitely made a great recovery, now sitting above both Super and How. And then you have Silence, Queen of Pain topping out the board at 5k. Is going to be going for a Eul Scepter first, so no Orchid that we were talking about earlier. You didn't really want to see that item. Do you agree with Eul Scepter?
Yeah, that was the item I told them. I was like, you should get a Eul's. Like, you get a Eul's, a BKB, or an Axe. Eul's is the safest for the early game, because if you look at Vici Gaming's lineup, they've got the Rubik to initiate on you, but more importantly than that, it's the Crystal Maiden Frostbite that typically gets you killed.
Yeah.
But if you can just Eul's dodge it, wait for the animation to end, there's nothing that'll instantly disable you from Vici Gaming unless Ice 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 times the Clockwork Hook perfectly. But at top, they should be really careful right now as Resolution, if he gets initiated on, Aloha Dance actually looks like he wants to be the target, and Ice 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 is coming in hot.
Yeah, they know. If they go on Resolution, there's going to be a relocate save. So they sneak around behind and try and go for Aloha Dance first. Great setup from Ice, managing to land that hook shot beautifully. Oh, the damage there. Those two supports. If they had actually gotten a double kill on that, that would have been a very impressive turn. But FY will live. Fenrir also going to be just fine. So great pick off there for Vici Gaming. Not going to be laying down to Empire's aggression. They respond with a smoke gank of their own.
Yeah, and I really like that Vici Gaming seems so willing to bring How to fights. I think this is actually a little bit different than most of the teams that we see. Is most teams just like to farm up their one position, let him use the jungle as much as you can, but How seems to be participating non-stop in fights. Like, we saw him in the 8-minute gank, we see it again. They're willing to bring him to the ganks because they realize their support duo without him is actually quite weak. Like, they've got a Rubik and a Crystal Maiden that don't independently do too much damage, and so bringing How along, you have some lockdown, you get the Rocket Barrage off, it's almost always a kill when they see it coming.
Silent, that Yule Scepter is coming in fast. He's going to farm up the rest of these neutrals and will be able to pick that one up. Super, meanwhile, is he going to be going for an early BKB here, or is this the Sage? What about the Glimmer Cape build that was quite popular in China and actually made it over to the Western scene as well, where you would go Glimmer Cape and then break it apart for the Shadow Blade? Is this just not a Shadow Blade game?
I think that it's not a Shadow Blade game. I think that going for... if you're going to get the Shadow Blade, you would have done it first. But I think going for BKB here is a really safe option. Because if you're taking a look at Empire's damage, most of it is magic damage. The only source of physical damage is from the Tiny, who typically isn't going to be able to get the Aghanims as a first or second. Like, he's not going to be able to get it until after the drums minimum.
Right.
And if you take a look at the Queen of Pain, yes, the ultimate goes through, but if that's your only source of damage that pierces through the BKB, you're perfectly satisfied with that.
Middle tower
Three-man smoke for Team Empire, but really it's a five-man smoke. They have the relocate available. If Team Empire run into somebody from Vici Gaming in the jungle, they will immediately relocate in order to finish that hero off. But it seems much more likely we're going to have a full-on team fight here. Ice and Fenrir seem to be the first potential targets they're going to run into, but both of them are hiding in the trees in these hidden little spots. It seems like both are prepared for some potential action. Super does manage to take that tier 1 tower, and Vici Gaming are still making sure they stay very grouped up. It seems pretty obvious they know what's going on. Resolution will be able to get the tier 1 tower at the top lane at the same time, so while we're having this sort of standoff, both teams were able to take a tower. It's just up to Empire, I guess, if they really want to force it here.
The issue is that Empire knows that they have a ward there, but it looks like it doesn't matter as they are going to run into each other.
Oh, Ice managed to snag out. Always want to fly. He's going to be in some serious trouble. The relocate's still going to come in. They managed to find how and pop him immediately. FY responds with a toss on a Resolution, which almost kills him. But now with a little bit of heal up from the wand, Resolution seems to be staying alive. Now they jump over the tether, and they will relocate back up. Both Yoki as well as the Queen of Pain will be able to run themselves away as well. So despite the fact that it was kind of an awkward way to start that fight, it actually turned out quite well with the relocate being on the money. Aloha Dance jumping immediately into that neutral camp meant that they had quick access to How. Now Super comes forward, trying to challenge Resolution alongside Fenrir, but they don't have the catch just yet.
The thing is about Empire's lineups always is that there's some form of them having
early game. Nope, never mind. He's going to be good. There's no way they can actually get to him, so good TP out. He's been very good about keeping TPs because he knows there's a little bit of a lack of stuns because he's been facing up against a Dazzle and Queen of Pain constantly.
I think Silent had the Yules up, though. I'm not sure. Maybe it was on CD. But I didn't see him use it, but it might just be my mistake. But as I was saying, it's really tough to fight Empire in the mid game because their drafts are so oriented around having almost 3 supports rather than the 3 cores that we typically see.
Right.
Like they pick Resolution or Silent often really hard win positions, and somebody has to lose out on farm, right? And that person is almost always going to be their offlaner. Like every single time he plays the Axe, the Clockwork, the Sand King, the Earthshaker, some sort of initiation role. And so
yeah, Clockwork doesn't need much farm, and then Sand King as well as Earthshaker only really need Blink Dagger, so they operate kind of fine without too much farm.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's almost like Empire have 3 supports, just 1 super greedy support. It's like they have 2-4 players, and in the mid game that helps so much when it comes to team fights because you only need that 1 item to really make an effective difference.
And it's funny because those heroes, especially the Earthshaker, I think, like you can still have a very large impact as an Earthshaker with just a Blink Dagger, even if it is quite late game. So it still works out that even if Empire do get late, you don't really feel that 3 support loss too much. It's not like you feel like you're missing too much of a core. Now, they almost finish up the Aghanim Scepter for Resolution. Team Empire, do they curb their aggression at any point in time and try and finish up this Aghanim Scepter, or maybe even try and farm up an AC before they continue to go? Because I almost feel like it's a little bit of pressure is on Vici Gaming now to try and be the aggressors and try and take those tier 2 towers with their push.
If you decide to go for dual BKBs like Vici are doing on their cores, and the Blade Mail, this is pretty much built so that you can win the early engagements. So it is kind of on Vici. The onus is on them to at least get a little bit more aggressive than they have been, especially since DK just isn't a flash farming core. Like you do want to get aggressive, take towers. That's the point of the hero. Whereas Tiny, he's naturally going to build tanky because Drums, Treads, and Aghanim Scepter is just a ton of stats. And so he doesn't necessarily have to go for the BKB, especially because he has the Wisp backing him up. So it's less important for him to just straight up build into that BKB, meaning he'll transition into the late game a lot better and a lot stronger because his BKB timer will naturally be longer, right?
Right.
So for Vici to both go for BKBs early on, it does mean that by the 30-40 minute mark, those are going to be 5-second BKBs, and they won't nearly be as effective. So I think the onus is completely on Vici Gaming to at least get aggressive, and you're seeing that right now. Like, I think the smoke attempt is meant to pick one off and then go for Roche or something like that, but they'll be satisfied with the stack at the same time.
Yeah, I'm taking away that from the Tiny with Aghanim Scepter is going to be a good setup. Ice is sitting in the trees, ready to go, essentially, if anybody shows up. But in the meantime, they'll just be happy with that stack as you sent. Do they try and go Roshan? Is that one way to force it? It is a little dangerous, though, against a Tiny Wisp, right? Simply because they can just push out the side lanes real quickly and easily get a tier 2 trade-off.
I think if they had found, like, 2 picks or something, they would have, but, oh, at top, how's going to be the... Oh, okay, never mind. I think, like, if you had a Medallion or some other heroes, but a Dragon Knight and a Gyrocopter that both go BKB probably aren't enough to accomplish that.
Just not enough physical damage yet from them.
There's no natural Medallion builder on their team at the same time. Like, Empire have the much easier way to go for the Roshan.
True. Speaking of that, Empire may want to Roche if they find a pick off here. Silent has already run into Ice, but Yule Scepter, and that's about it. Silent blinks himself away. Still, though, they've bought some space. They see a couple of heroes. They probably presume Vici Gaming also try and group up after seeing something like that. And this will leave empty space for Resolution and a little hot dance to push out the bottom.
Yeah, they're just farming more efficiently because Vici Gaming are afraid to lose a fight at this point. And if you split up against a Tiny Wisp that have Ags, you're just asking to die. Or you don't want to pop your BKB charges early on because it delays any sort of death ball push that you want to do even further. And you can see that Empire preparing for that just with the way that Silent is building. He's going to go for the Aghanim Scepter second. And
oh, nice toss forward. Beautiful setup on Silent. That is creativity in action. The toss combinations at work, the instant stun followed up with the Dragonite, and now with the loss of the Queen of Pain, Empire are very unlikely to fight. I mean, you already said Vici Gaming are built to, with the double BKBs to try and force fights. Now, you already don't really want to go into the enemy's plan, right? And when you're missing a Queen of Pain, that just makes it all the more obvious. So Empire immediately go for the split push option, pushing out both bottom and top lane.
Yeah, I definitely think that Empire feel pretty comfortable with this position because they're just going to push faster. Like a Tiny Wisp, if you notice at bottom, just 4 hits and he's already got the tower down to 600 from full. And so going for these types of trades is perfectly fine. Your Tiny is getting quite farmed off of this, and what you're trying to do in situations...
Oh, the relocate, there's the blink in. Ice just gets destroyed. The immediate response is there from Hal, but no matter how fast you are, Tiny, Earthshaker, and Wisp are just a little bit faster, both in movement speed, but also that burst damage.
And that's the issue. That's the first time you've seen Vici not 5-man, right? They show Ice at top. It's pretty clear that he's alone, especially with this ward up. Like this ward, when they went for the smoke and got it off, it meant that this entire section was so easy for them to spot. Ice shows himself on the map for like 2 seconds, immediately gets taken out, and now, I mean, Vici are just scared because there's no real safe place for them to show themselves. They're not entirely certain where the wards are, and that's just making it difficult for them to maneuver around the map.
And they've only got 1 smoke left. So that's really the last opportunity for Vici Gaming to get the easy, sneaky pick off and turn that into 5-manning. If you're out of smokes, though, and you're stuck in this situation where you want a 5-man, but you also maybe don't have the power to push uphill yet, what do you really do? What are your options? Do you just 5-man into tier 2 towers repeatedly and then try and hope that gold advantage is enough for you to go for maybe Roshan? Or do you continue to try and find, well, maybe a pick off on Resolution? This is a way to go. Call down's not going to be there in time, though. Resolution is fast enough to get away. Hookshot actually misses from Ice. Either way, just doesn't seem like they were going to have a good fight, as both supports were kind of ready to respond to the Tiny's need.
The thing is, like you said, if you don't have smokes like that, you just have to fight around where you think you have vision. They already dewarded the ward over here. They have one over here, so they can spot when the Tiny goes for the Ancients. But at the same time, I think that was just a little bit of sloppy execution by Vici Gaming, because they should have at least been able to force the relocate or something out of that. But the Tiny actually just walked away very calmly and wasn't in range of anything. And now Empire just going to play the split push game because they're allowed to. If you only send one hero to deal with the split push, then the Tiny IO relocate in, instantly blow somebody out, and get out. And that's the thing that you're so afraid of if you're Vici Gaming right now. Like, they're so afraid of it right now that Super's even opted to go for the Blink Dagger so that he can initiate upon the Tiny, but I don't even... Again, that's more of a mid-game build. Like, you don't actually have any damage now onto the Dragon Knight, and so you're going to struggle in the mid-game to do more than just stun.
13-11 right now. It's 25 minutes in, and Empire do hold a pretty decent experience lead and only about a 2,000 gold lead, but they do have, at least for now, the better late game in the Tiny Wisp, right? It's just such a powerful combination late game. It seems it just seems really tough to beat, and I'm not sure if Gyrocopter DK are going to be good enough.
Especially with this Queen of Pain picking up this Aghanim Scepter, it's going to be really hard to push into Empire's 5-man. It's going to just make things even more frustrating for Vici Gaming, because it's not as if they aren't trying to get into fights, it's just that they simply can't without forcing something completely and losing the game. And this is the advantage of their lineup, because they decided to go for the Medallion, they are dire side, and the Tiny Wisp can do this quite quickly. And with this Roshan, it's going to stall the game out even further for them if they want to. They can decide to go for this bottom tier 2 push because the tower's so low, and I don't think that Vici Gaming want to get into that fight in any case.
Rocket is there. Vici Gaming are on their way, but it's just too late. The Age is already in the hands of Resolution, and Vici Gaming are left with the option of whether or not they want to try and force this one. It looks like Ice says we have to. They trap in Resolution and will be able to get the kill on him, it seems, but he does have the Aegis. So the rest of Team Empire are going to wait it out and try and go for a re-engage. But How is making sure that the Aloha Dance doesn't have the opportunity to be able to get over to Resolution. Left-hand side, Silent trying to blow up FY. Looks like he's successful, and they do get the relocate over to the side. Aloha Dance barely survives through that one, but Super blinks forward. It is able to get the kill on the Wisp, and now trying to lock down Resolution. Gets the stun, and with Hao's damage, it looks like they'll be able to get the kill on the Tiny as well. A fantastic fight for Vici Gaming, and with the Dragonite as well as the Gyrocopter still up, they're going to be able to push uphill.
Yeah,
this could be a whole lane of Rex, actually.
It's just so fortuitous that the lane is pushed up. They immediately head there. They're going to get racks off of this, and Empire are going to be so dissatisfied with how that just went. They didn't get anything out of that. They managed to pick up 2 heroes that weren't really necessary to the push, and at the same time, you lose your Tiny twice without any sort of backup. And I think it was just a matter of not being able to set up that fight properly, and people just being way too split up from each other. Like, Empire took that fight as if it were 3 mini 1v1 fights, and you're never going to be able to consolidate your power in that way. And now you're with the 2 BKBs. Vici actually never wasted them. Now they've got 9-second BKB still remaining, and the one time they do use them, they pick up a fairly dominant fight. But I still think Empire is in an okay position despite what just happened. Like, losing a Rax in a tier 3 is obviously pretty bad, but they still have the experience lead. The difference in net worth is not that bad, all things considered.
Yeah. I mean, if any combination can fight well up against a Rax or 2 Rax advantage, it's the Tiny Wisp. And then on top of that, I mean, it was just the range Rax, right? Like the melee being more really the important one when it comes to pushing down towers. So Vici Gaming got definitely a really good change-up. I mean, the trajectory of this game seemed to be all Team Empire, but they aren't in the driver's seat just yet. Team Empire is still going to be able to farm up rather quickly on this Tiny, who is working on the Assault Cura. So Vici Gaming are going to need another big team fight like that soon. Question is, how soon do you really try and force it? You maybe think that you bought yourself enough time that you can sit back, farm up, and maybe wait for your opportunity, or do they need to go in the next 5 to 10 minutes?
No, wait for your opportunities. That's what they did exactly right there. Even with the Roshan advantage that Empire had, they just had the better looking fight because they were able to split up everybody, and Ice had such a good initiation. He was able to split the Tiny and the IO up from everybody. He got his Blade Mail off before the combination, so the Tiny pretty much killed himself, and you're just waiting for opportunities like that to happen, and you instantly lose a Rax. The thing, though, is that I think once Resolution gets a BKB, things become a little bit tricky for them. He's fully completed his Assault Cuirass, and so that last fight has to demonstrate to him that I have to get a BKB at some point.
Super on hot pursuit here. He's got the Blink Dagger. Silent, though, has an Invis rune. And they don't have any counter vision, so he is perfectly fine.
Oh, they've got the gem.
Never mind. Silent. Jesus, he stuck around for way too long. Blinks himself away. He may still actually be caught. He's got another blink on the left-hand side. Always want to fly. He's the one who's actually going to fall. Vici Gaming turned to address him and even stole the Shallow Grave. Nice steal for the Rubik. That's a big one.
Yeah, but the Tiny and the IO aren't interested in getting into any sort of fights. The Glyph is up, and I expect Vici Gaming to use it, because you don't want to just give up its free Tier 2 tower. It stalls the game out a little bit longer, and it just makes things really tough, because the more exposed Tier 2 towers you have, the better potential there is for the combination to just, when you're all in 5-man pushing, they just backdoor your tower.
Yeah,
and then they're back to your racks.
And Team Empire not in a position where they can go, okay, we forced the Glyph, you know, let's just go ahead and 5-man in and, you know, try and go uphill. Empire are going to be spending this game a lot more just kind of poking and prodding at these towers every now and again. There's no potential all-in play for the next 5 minutes. So the Glyph being used there, definitely not a problem. Super does have a Sage here, and if this is really early, we've seen DKs occasionally go SNY, but it's super rare. Much more obvious would be the Silver Edge build with the Shadow Blade, but I think you would have built that first, right? I mean, you mentioned that earlier, plus he's already got the Blink Dagger, so is this a Heaven's Halberd?
I would like to see it, especially if he thinks that Resolution is going to be greedy. There's going to be a time window where he's still not going to grab a BKB in time, and that's actually going to really screw him over, as Hao is looking for it right now, and Vici Gaming are all grouped up. They're all ready for this fight right now, and Empire just trying to get the high ground advantage, but it looks like they're actually just going to push straight down mid, and there's not a whole lot that can be done about this. They should get back in time.
Team Empire going to be forced into a base defense here. There's no reason they should give up a melee racks. They're a little bit late on their TPs, though, it seems, as they're even going to go ahead and use the Wisp and Tiny TP back. They don't want to try and relocate in. Probably for the best. Super is going to be the first target here with Fisher, and a small amount of damage laid out. Super is even tossed up in the air, and immediately, oh, Jesus, gets Echo slammed down, and our Dragonite is just performed a disappearing act. Yoki, though, managed to get save out from the Shallow Grave. Aloha Dance. Ice with the force staff forward will make sure he does go down, and Resolution is left without his little buddy.
That was so scary. I saw Super, and I think he thought he could wait to use the BKB, but as soon as he gets tossed up in the air, he gets slammed right back down with the Sonic Wave.
Yeah, that was just a really good read from Yoki going, okay, we can one-shot him. Oh, FY, hello. He performs an Echo Slam of his own and even then steals the Blink away from the Queen of Pain as they kill him. Now Resolution, he's been caught inside the cogs. The force staff over, Resolution still caught by the Frostbite. Needs to try and get back to the fountain, though, as the Wisp is still not up for another 15 seconds. That's gotta be that melee racks forfeit.
Yeah, they're gonna have to give this up. Even without the Queen of Pain, they can't really get into a fight right now, and Hao gonna take that Rax and walk away. And I mean, Vici Gaming are looking stronger by the moment, and they're just approaching these fights so much better. Like, FY is still in Echo Slam. He was able to counter use it onto Silent. He's stolen Blink. He's just been so relevant this game, and now we're starting to see a hero. Rubik isn't typically a hero that you pick in the first two, almost ever, right? Like, you take the Dazzle, you take the Disruptor, but they felt so confident in his Rubik that they were willing to take it in the first two, and now you're seeing why.
Yeah, absolutely. And our Gyrocopter, he's about to finish up an MKB, so a huge increase in damage for him. The Dragonite is actually going to be going for the little bit later SNY. So no Heaven's Halberds. I thought that would have been a great idea versus the Tiny in order to kind of force him to go into a BKB, and if he doesn't have it, that Disarm would be rather powerful. You can see Resolution is going for the BKB now, though. It's already got the Ogre Club.
Yeah, it probably makes more sense to go for the SNY here. If he goes for a Silver Edge, which he could, it doesn't really prevent too much at this point anymore, and maybe if he had gone for it for first or second item, but almost nobody does that, and SNY is just an overall decent item. The thing I'm increasingly more worried about, though, is that if Resolution doesn't get a BKB by the time the next fight rolls around, I just don't think he can do anything. If you notice, in every single fight, Ice is throwing himself upon Resolution. He pops the Blade Mail and lets him hit him. Otherwise, you just waste the potential of the Wisp, because the Dragonite at the same time engages on Aloha Dance every single time, and so the Tiny isn't able to protect anyone while he's in the cogs, and he's just taking repeated damage.
Super pops his ultimate. He wants to take this tier 2, take it fast, and well, they could probably even push uphill and force another team fight. They're in a great position for it. Roshan is going to be respawning in 3 minutes. Meantime, Team Empire are immediately trying to go for the split push, as the Tiny Wisp always does. Resolution takes away the tier 2 and now starts marching uphill. So it seems like Vici Gaming, they probably don't want to make that kind of trade-off. It's just too dangerous against a Tiny Wisp. Trading racks is when you're kind of already ahead. Seems a bit unnecessary. As I say that, though, the Tiny Wisp has backed themselves away, and Vici Gaming are now almost putting themselves in a position to re-engage.
Yeah, the problem right now is that Empire don't have really many wards up. They've got one for Roshan to spot the possible attempt, but if they don't walk through that river area, it's actually really hard for them to see what Vici Gaming are doing, and so they don't necessarily feel safe going for this top split push. With all the information that we have on the map, it looks really obvious, right?
Yep.
To try to force them back, but in this type of situation, it's really difficult for them to just make that blind call, and with Roshan spawning so soon at the same time, they can't just all-in forfeit for that, because Vici Gaming will go high ground with that Aegis, and how has a DD rune bottle really smartly given by Super, although it is going to get popped now, and he's got an MKB at the same time, so that damage we were talking about them lacking is no longer a problem.
Oh, definitely. And at this rate, with the way that Super is actually keeping in pace, he could actually be a decent damage dealer as time goes on as well. Now, Resolution is still top of the board, sitting at 17,000. He's got the Aghanims now with the BKB, and of course that Assault Cuirass he picked up earlier. Silent has the BKB as well, so they do have that magic immunity option. Yoki has gone for not only the Blink Dagger and Force Staff, but also the Yule Scepter for the added utility. What is really the play for Yoki with this Yules?
I think it's just to throw up whoever he can and buy time. It's kind of like the same application of when you just pick up an item to get an advantage in a team fight, right? It resets things a lot. For example, if you can just Ice hooks in, you can lift him before the cogs or anything like that. Or if you can just continue the fight more than anything. So if Yoki gets initiated on, then he can just immediately use himself, then Force Staff, then Blink out, and just reposition. Like, it's just a pure utility item.
Oh, this could be the play. If Vici Gaming managed to get a pick off here, this could be the just the crack in the armor that allows them to crack this whole entire game open. They manage to take out the Whiz Balls. Resolution making the TPL, but
oh, he gets tossed.
FY, what a play! Stealing the toss, tossing Resolution up in the air, and that means Resolution is now stuck. He's gonna have to stick here and think about what he did wrong. Free kill for Vici Gaming turns to 2, and now Always Wanna Fly is gonna make it a third. Double kill for How, and this seems to be another set of racks as Empire have no buybacks.
Yeah, this is going to mean at least one set of racks. They can't really take the one at top because the tier 2 tower still stands, but I mean, this game in the beginning was Empire favored. Like, they had the better builds, they had a really good combination, but the support play from Vici Gaming...
Oh, good damage! He jumps forward, but How is still going to be able to stay alive. The burst damage wasn't quite enough, and Queen of Pain quick to retreat. They tried to make that defense, but as Empire finally revealed their last card and Vici Gaming Trumpet, they will now be able to move into Empire's space, take out this lane of racks, and back out with a gigantic advantage.
I'm actually just blown away right now by Vici Gaming's support combo. FY has 3 deaths. This Crystal Maiden with 1,000 HP has 1 death total this entire game against the type of lineup that she's up against. That's unbelievable. That just means his positioning this entire game, he hasn't been caught at all by the relocate combination. Like, typically with this combination you see aggression all across the map, you see one support, they die instantly, but FY and Fenrir, for a long time they were considered the premier support duo. That's fallen off a bit, but in this first game that we're seeing by them, they're playing nearly flawlessly.
I'll be honest with you, Blitz, they never fell off in my mind. In my mind, when I think of combinations for supports, FY and Fenrir will always be. I don't care if they retire after TI5. I'm TI6, I'll be like, FY Fenrir, man. These two, they're the ones to, if you're looking at support duos, they are pretty much the champions. Now, Team Empire still have a big opening here. This is going to be a big fight around the Roshan. If they can actually win it, take that Aegis, maybe they can even at least get enough map control where they're feeling a lot more comfortable to farm, or maybe even if it's a big enough fight, for some buybacks. Vici Gaming already got quite the significant lead, so they're not going to be quick to trying to do something drastic like attempting Roshan will Empire back up. They're just going to sit back and farm away.
I just can't highlight enough. In that bottom fight, that actually might have been okay for Empire if only the IO gets taken out. But that toss deal...
Amazing.
I mean, FY, he steals the Echo Slam, turns it around on Silent. There's just been so many plays. Remember that toss in mid as well when they picked off Silent? When he tosses his Dragon Knight in to set up for the stun call down? It's just been so consistently good. Like, if I had to name MVPs, although the game isn't nearly over yet, FY and Fenrir, even if this is a losing effort, they've just been playing outstandingly.
All right, a smoke up, but they're going to go into the cliff of death here, as Vlad calls it. Vici Gaming, they're already well set up to be able to defend this one. Potentially BKB already off bomb by Resolution. TI5 managed to get away. There goes the ultimate from Silent, but now he's in trouble. Self-Fuel Scepter in order to dodge some of this. Hook shot is played in, but Silent still gets a decent distance away, but Resolution is already gone out, and a Wiz couldn't manage to save him. Yoki, meanwhile, controlled by the supports, has to blink himself away, and once again, Vici Gaming just seemed to be playing defensively, waiting for Team Empire to come to them, and sure enough, that happens. Now that Team Empire have wasted their aggression, Vici Gaming are well set up to take Roshan right after Super gets an extra kill, this time on Silent.
Yeah, they're immediately going to call GG. They realize that if the fight goes like that, and that was a pretty ideal fight for Empire, where they set up with their own BKB, nobody really got bursted down immediately, and you still lose the fight, then there's pretty much no hope for you. But this was definitely a game where I'm not going to say it was a throw. It wasn't that bad. Like, the lead that Empire had was never very significant, but they definitely should have made this game a lot closer.
And a lot of it comes down to the incredibly strong play from Vici Gaming, most notably in FY, getting one of the most clearest game-winning pickoffs there with the tiny toss.